Hi folks, Tacitus today at your pushback channel, Tacitus today, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the very, very aggressive and very determined and very focused attempt by the globalist controlled machine to eradicate and dismember white history, white culture, and to invade any brand or franchise, whether that be a successful novel or a successful movie or anything to do with whiteness. Anything to do with whiteness must be attacked and replaced with non-white characters and revised storylines about how wicked, evil and bad white people are and how they're the oppressors and so on. And this applies to history or novels, stage plays. It doesn't matter. Everything is under assault, and it's all funded by the globalists. Now, when did I first notice this or notice the pattern, I guess? I used to, as I've mentioned in other videos, used to do a lot of business traveling. And when you're on the long haul flights, particularly LA to New York, Sydney to Los Angeles, New York to London, those sorts of flights, London to Singapore and so on, you get to see quite a lot of movies, or have the option anyway. I used to read as well, but looking at these movies, and I it so happens that I just read a novel by quite a well-known writer, and interestingly, when you're doing a lot of traveling, you often find, because you're changing time zones all the time, you often find it hard to sleep. And I found that reading sort of helped me. Somehow it seemed to sort of settle you down so you go to sleep easier. So I used to always keep some books with me for that purpose. I would buy them on the way. But I just read a novel, and it was all white characters. And then the movie had come out, and so I saw it. I watched it on the plane. I was surprised that the main character who was white had been replaced by a relatively unknown black actor at the time, who I, by the way, thought he did quite a passable job of acting the role, but nonetheless, he wasn't the character in the novel was a white guy. The second character was a white woman. The third character, the good guys sort of side of things, the third character was turned into another woman, so who was Hispanic. So you've got three white characters, and the two males have been switched to a black male and a Hispanic female. So that's quite a substantial. Now, they didn't need to be changed. There was no benefit in changing it. There was nothing in it that just simply wasn't necessary. That was an ideological decision, nothing more than that. And it surprised me because, again, it just wasn't necessary. I mean, why do it unless you're pushing an agenda? And this was in the early 1990s. Now, I'd kind of seen patchy examples of it previously, but hadn't read the novel or hadn't seen the story. There was a historical sort of docudrama movie that I saw that was such an obscene misrepresentation of some a brown character that I thought, well, it has to be purposeful. Why would they present white people in such an incredibly negative light and put this brown person, who was no saint, by the way, far from it, present them in such a positive light? So wash out all the negatives about the brown person and gin up and invent lots of negatives about white people. And that's so I was starting to see, hey, this is a pattern here. And so I started to look into it sort of a little bit more, not seriously necessarily, but say I'd see a movie where the lead character is black. I'd say I'd be in a bookshop, and I'm a book collector, so I'd be in a bookshop and I'd say, well, I'd make a point of having a look at that that novel on the bookshelf just to see, well, what was the character in the novel? Was the character black? And it wouldn't be. So there was already, from the early 1990s, and possibly even earlier than that, there was already a very concerted effort and attempt to replace white characters in primarily novels, but initially it was novels anyway, stories, and even stage dramas, but to replace white characters with black or Hispanic or Asian and so on. Now, I recently saw a movie which was a remake, and the lead male character who was very confident and used to bash up the bad guys and that sort of thing. He's been replaced with an Indian character who's an absolute simp, who gets slapped around by strong women who put him in his place. And the all-white characters of the 12 characters, all of whom were white, only 3-4 remain white, and the roles have been reversed. The boys have all been turned into stupid, incompetent, moronic simps, and the girls are now big and tough and kick ass without even breaking a sweat, and somehow magically acquire all the necessary skills and capabilities to the classic sort of thing, the 90-pound, 100-pound girl, skinny, scrawny girl, beats the living crap out of the 250-pound roided out bodybuilder. So it transcends fantasy there, but why replace all the white characters? Now, my issue, I don't necessarily care if they want to, Hollywood or any group, that wants to create a movie, and it becomes, I don't know, the black version of, or the non-white version of, or something, and that's the title of the movie, then Black Pinocchio or Asian Asian Jiminy Cricket or something. I don't care. Don't do it. I mean, promote that. Just make it absolutely clear. This is you're getting rid of the white characters, and you're creating a new character, a new movie that's politically correct, Pinocchio or Black Pinocchio, or we guarantee Pinocchio, or we guarantee all white characters will be diminished and made look stupid or something. You put that in the byline. Hey, I don't care. I mean, go ahead, do it. Create your own franchise. Create your own sort of subset of the original meal. That's fine, but make it clear that's what you're doing. But they don't do that. They trade off the franchise. They trade off the brand that was built and created by white people, and has developed a huge following because of the quality of the animation or the script or the drama has created a huge following, a brand in effect. And they thought, let's slip in our propaganda, and let's slip in our new age bullshit. Let's slip it in to the white developed, white created, white conceived, made successful by white entrepreneurs. Let's do that, and then we'll just not tell people. Let's have, for example, a black Tinkerbell, or a black lesbian Little Mermaid, or whatever. Let's do that, and in that way we can get all our woke propaganda in there. Now, again, if they want to create, the little lesbian mermaid, the little black lesbian mermaid, I don't care. Have a movie, have the big signs everywhere. Lesbian black Little Mermaid. I mean, do it. Hey, go ahead. No one's going to watch it, of course, and people will stay with the original storyline. Damn fucking fascist Nazis, those who like the original. But do this, but they're not doing that. Instead, they're climbing into all the white developed franchises and destroying that. I had an interesting conversation. This was actually on a plane in the United States where this guy Leon, and he had he's very Jewish and nice guy, but we sort of I'd mentioned this in one of the movies. Why are they replacing all these things? This is and I said something along the lines, this is a white developed franchise. He came back, well, hey, hold on a minute, Hollywood's all Jewish. So these movies, like whether it be Peter Pan or The Little Mermaid and everything, they're all developed by the Jewish financiers, Jewish-run movie studios, and that's what. Now I would dispute that Disney back in the day was completely Jewish. Today it might be, but I don't think it was then. But would some of the writers or animators have been Jewish? I guess, yeah. But so I'm not sure I agree with that. But the idea of MGM and all those big studios. They were definitely Jewish, but they didn't make all these movies and all these, particularly those 1930 to 1950 type animations. They weren't all made by Jewish studios, but his view was that these are all Jewish. Excuse me, these are all Jewish works anyway, whether it be in background, the producers, directors, financiers were Jewish. Therefore, it really is Jewish owned. So if the Jewish people want to now use it for pro-Jewish propaganda, then, what's wrong with that? We're an oppressed people. We have a right to do this and so on. So that was kind of his argument. And I don't know, I suppose I kind of see it, but, I see the point he was making. I don't agree with it. But going through, so I've sort of just recently started to compile a list of novels and histories that have been infiltrated with virulent, very aggressive anti-white, anti-Western propaganda. Now, if it was, if you go, I wouldn't mind if the propaganda was, anti-black here, then anti-white, then anti-Asian, or anti-something. I would anti-Jewish or something. I wouldn't mind as long as the hatred was spread around. But it's not. It's only ever anti-white, and particularly anti-male. It is only one direction, one way, and nothing else. And that's a problem. So that clearly indicates that there's a purposeful an aggressive and very focused intent to attack white people, to attack white civilization, to attack white history, and to attack anything that underwrites white society and its traditions and its achievements and its accomplishments. That has to go. For the globalist project to succeed, they must crush and eradicate this, which is what they're doing. Anyone under the age of 25, with just few exceptions, would only ever have been exposed to severe anti-white hatred right through the school, junior school, high school, college. Would only ever have been exposed to anti. And when we're doing business out in the, we're out in the on site or in the fields, particularly where we're dealing with young women or any of the rainbow type crowd, whereas they want to be liked, they've got a minuscule tolerance. You just see the look as you come around the corner. You're an old white male, you're a Nazi, probably fucking Hitler, and that prejudice is just seething in a lot of them. And as long as you sort of bow down before them and play the super humble card, they might just accept you and let you off without a lecture about your wicked, evil, fascist, Nazi tendencies. So we're seeing the entire canon of literature, whether it be historical dramas or indeed histories, claims that the various kings and queens of England were black. So fuck. And trying to pass that off as fact without any pushback from from any of the the museums or the universities or any politicians, the body they're all letting this just go straight through. Now, so I compiled a list of novels and docudramas and found that the insertion or the removal of white characters is probably more the issue, but the insertion of black and Asian characters and Hispanic, in the case of the United States, the insertion of these characters, but to replace white characters, and the diminishing of white characters to be bumbling moron idiots, and particularly black women are fucking high IQ, physically capable, geniuses and athletes and so on. It's quite absurd, where white men are depicted as being in charge and so on. I do know white men who are like that, but where they've got the the black lesbian woman, half Asian or something, half Hispanic, who's I've never met one. Maybe they exist, but I've just never seen one. So this replacement of characters is going on now. Looking at a certain series of novels. I'm looking at one now that I took a note on. The lead character is white. He's been replaced by a black guy. Plausibly, in this case, by the way, it does kind of work. It was unnecessary to do it, and it's not the storyline, and they didn't stick true to the story. Wherever they've deviated from the storyline, it is to insert propaganda. So the white guy has been replaced by a black guy. There's a bad black guy in there who's an evil character in the novel. He's been replaced by a white guy. So only straight white guys can be evil. There was a handicapped white guy who's being oppressed by another white guy, and that character's been replaced by a Hispanic female, also handicapped, who's being oppressed by the evil white guy. She is depicted in the movie as being morally far superior to the white guy who's oppressing her, something that wasn't in the novel. So they made changes, but only changes that replaced white people or made white people look bad, or to give black people starring roles. That was the only changes they made. Now you could say, well, they probably made some changes for continuity of, cut out some sections of the novel because it would have been expensive to film. So, no, I get that. I understand that, the continuity thing, but that's not the issue. The changes they made were purposefully anti-white civilization and so on. And that's very determined. You're sitting down at the beginning and say, okay, how are we going to write this, or rewrite in the case they were going off a novel? How are we going to rewrite this to make white people look bad? How are we going to rewrite this to write people out of the script? So that's the intent. They're sitting down with that evil intent. Now, you've got to really hate the people to do that. Why would you have that much hatred towards white people? I don't understand that. It's a white guy who wrote the novel. If you're that much against white guys, don't use novels written by white people. But they just happen to be the best stories. It's like that, is it? Okay, all right. So looking through these movies and comparing to the novels, I was surprised at the scale of replacement, and not simply that, but I already mentioned the extent to which it's rewritten to depict whites in a negative manner and to depict minorities, the so-called minorities, black and Asian people and so on, to depict them in a positive light, particularly black women and Asian women and so on. So, if in the movie, if in the novel, the guy is the big sword fighting hero, he's reduced to being a silly little simp who's bitch slapped by these strong you go girl women, and the violence is only one way. The violence is against the woman is being assertive and slaps the guy around. But if there's any violence depicted by males against females, then it's depicted as evil fascism. But again, it's very premeditated. They're sitting down with the intent of doing this. It's not something that's any natural or organic in any way, whether natural or organic in real life or not. Now, the same thing's happening in history, though. Factual, casting concrete history. Characters all over white history are being, oh, well, did you know that that king or that emperor or that so and so was actually black? Or did you know that actually it wasn't a guy at all, it was a black lesbian, and so on? And this is being done again very purposefully, and these people who write this utter absolute claptrap nonsense are being generously funded, given book publishing deals, paid to go on speaking tours and so on to apply this propaganda. It's a very coordinated, very planned, very concerted effort. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.